Good morning, good morning, good morning. I just had an idea chat that I need to try, so you're gonna have to be patient with me for just a second. Where did I put this? Where did I get that one from? I know it's here somewhere. And there's the games we played the other day. But how is everybody doing this morning? I hope everybody got some decent sleep. Mm-hmm. Oh, here it is. Okay, we're gonna try something real quick. There. Because it's the morning. So now I have a morning version. Yes, you were meant to sleep. Are you telling me you haven't slept? Come on, lovelies. No, it's morning time. Gotta wake up. Thank you, Cuddle Mia, for getting first, and Addie for stealing it immediately. Thank you, Lost Soul, for getting second, and Yen Uo. One day I'll learn how to say your name right. Thank you for getting third. Oh, Vanya stole it back, and now it's Anya, and now it's Savvy. I'll let this play out for a little while. Jupiter, why haven't you gotten sleep? Good morning, TikTok. Lost Soul. Good morning. Give a good morning to everybody here, one at a time. Good morning, Anya, Wicked, Soul, Gamia, Addie, Echo. Good morning, Tired, and Vanya. Good morning, Jupiter. Good morning, everyone. How's my heat extraction? I'm doing a bit better today. Heat's not as overwhelming as it was yesterday. That was a bit of a nightmare. Turns out I might have almost passed out, chat. That would have been awful. Can you imagine? But I'm okay now. Good morning, Luck. So I've complained about it quite often, but my apartment is very, very poorly ventilated. My apartment's very, very poorly ventilated. And the way the AC is set up is that there's a single vent in the bedroom, while there are like 6 vents in connecting rooms. So by the time the AC gets to my room, it has all but drained away. And last night while we were streaming extra long, this room just got like to about 100 degrees. Which happens. So, yeah. Oh, it's fine. I've adjusted things now, so hopefully I'll be fine. And I have more water for hydration, but yeah, that's why near the end of that stream I started really, really struggling. Don't forget, tonight is going to be Persona 4. Going to be a lot of fun. I've never played the Personas before. Well, I played a little bit of 5 with a friend. But I never played the Personas before, so I'm looking forward to it. This weekend, we're doing the Hear Me Out Gang, which should be a lot of fun, and so expect to see those clips on TikTok. And lastly, on Sunday, Dar and I should be doing 7 Days to Die in the morning, so don't expect chill vibes. It's going to be chaos, ideally. What's wrong with the Hear Me Out Gang? Vanya, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Trust me. It'll be fine. Alright? What's scary about a kink? It's gonna be mostly me making fun of people and their awful, awful choices. I'm still blown away by the fact that there's just a car, not a transformer, not a super fancy sports car, but it's just a car. I am most definitely making fun of your choices, Eddie. I know somebody did a whole bunch of Monster Hunter. I looked at like 2 things in there. And one person I think put a poem or a story, so I'll have to read it. But I'll read it first before I try to put it in. No, no, Chad. I remember what happened last night. Do y'all remember me getting lost? Oh no, this is awful. What do you mean? My life is far from evil. I have a lovely, lovely, kind, sweet, adorable life. Oh, this one was. I saw that coming. Alright, a new world. Chat, what should I name this one? No. Why did I go with the first name? First thing I see. And the next part is puppy, apparently. Name it dog because I need it. Alright. We have 15 minutes as always. 15 minutes on the clock. Oh, the game never fails the window. Because this is windowed mode, so it's never going to fill the window properly. It's always been like that. Does it bother you now that you've noticed? Here. Is that better? Now that it's centered. I slept okay. I woke up much too early. That's alright. You can always tell me that you want a headband. Kodo, get some sleep then. Close your eyes. What are you even doing awake? There's no need for you to be awake right now. No headband. Good morning, Shiny. How you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. Would you rather I stop streaming? Good morning, Dar. How's my favorite little sharky? Can we get a nice little shout out for Dar? Dar does some lovely, lovely content. No ASMR, not yet, but as well. And apparently they be chatting. And they also stink. They are a stinky shark chat. Don't let anybody tell you different. Hello, Night Blossom. How you doing? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Why are you awake so early? Oh, thank you so much for the redeem. One day I'll remove that. But today's not that day. Hey, Blossom, have you not gotten any sleep, sweetie? Enjoy your lurks, Echo. You be good. Good morning, Boko. The amount of you who don't sleep is very concerning. Alright, you know what? It's fine. I'm doing the song cover this week, and thank you for the sub. And I will be doing Good Morning Soul. Where'd you go? It's okay, Soul hates me. It's fine. Soul, I was gonna ask you specifically what kind of content that someone like you would be interested in seeing on TikTok, since you came from the TikToks. Because now I'm curious. Morning, Cruisy. How you doing? Mobile's being a bitch, that's fair. I have 11 minutes. Oof, we're not doing too well. I'm hoping to find some bamboo. White shark. White shark by shark. Oh. Wait. A hype train? Why are we at a hype? What? Huh? Are they for the beds? What? I don't. Okay. I don't know how to set off the hype train, but very cool. Hmm. That is what I mostly post, yes. So, am I falling asleep? Sorry, I was trying to understand what I was reading. I think I'm gonna make an ASMR TikTok as well. But, yeah, I currently just do rants and gaming stuff. I have slept, I just woke up way too early. And I'm still in a bit of a mental fog. But I'm working on it. Hi, Pinky. What can you wait for? I'm good, how are you, Pinky? I'll be fine, don't you worry. Stinky frogs, true facts, true facts. Norse. Anya, thank you. Thank you, I really do appreciate it. You didn't have to do that. I do appreciate it, though. We're on a tier 2 hype train this early in the morning. It's goofy. That Minecraft P was you. It's fair, it's fair. Shanna's brighter than my future. Vanya has fave. Vanya is definitely a fave. If I fall asleep, you can't blame me. Okay. No, it's fine. I'll ask you again later then, Soul. You relax. Anything you gotta worry about? I tried to go back to sleep, but I woke up and it was just so cold in this room. So cold my knees were hurting. And then I realized I had no pants. And I was too tired to find pants. So I kept sleeping. And thank you, Addie. You're the best. I made you cry while you're at the doctor's. What did I do this time? I don't deny it. It does sound like something I would do. No, that was the one time. I'm legally required to. And the government was like, hey, Gene, bully your mods more. Morning, Pomo. Morning. I don't think you'll realize how often I read your names, respond in my head, and then don't actually say something verbally. Thank you for following. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for the bits. We're almost at a tier 3 hype train. That's kind of crazy. They're stealing my boat. Oh, well. Hi. How's your morning going? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Quit your job then. You should just be a professional Gene Watcher and stay here. Well, is that what we're going to do now? How much minutes do we have left? I think there's about 5, yeah? I don't know what all of this stuff here is, but we will take it into phase. Okay. And now, that's a nice little hole. I enjoy that hole quite a lot. I think it will be a nice hole for me. That's a German. You only have to wait 5 minutes and then it will go away. How else is Soul gonna afford a subscription to LuckyJene? Yeah? It was asleep and then I haven't. I assume everybody hates my voices. Which is a weird thing for me to think when people keep redeeming them. Thank you for the bits, Anya. Thank you. We are so close. We are so close. We're almost there. 99% chat. We are almost there. Can you get it all the way? And there it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. We've done it. Fate, are we on level 4? Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. Oh, level 2. Level 3. Nah, that's bad at math. Oh, was there? I'm such a good doggy. I don't remember why I added that one. That is a fact. I am in fact blind. That is why I must wear the glasses. The glasses that are on my face. We have 2 minutes left. You keep that away from me. Keep your boo-boo thingies away from me. They do not belong in the same space that I am in. Enjoy your shower. Okay, we have very little time, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to rely on getting... Oh, chase. There are so many enemies here. Good morning, Ishmael. How are you doing today? I was not expecting all of these baddies. Me, a good boy. I do not know what you are talking about. It has been refused. Okay, do we have anything that's good for food? Berries. Alright, that will do at least for now. I'm always glad to hang out with you. Oh, wait, we need some pumpkin, we need some pumpkin, we need some pumpkin, we need some pumpkin. So there we go. Two of them will do very nicely. Is there anything else I can grab there? Wait a second, don't kill me. I haven't even made it to the end yet. Oh, why is this so pretty? Oh, you get dolled up for work. Make yourself nice and pretty. That way you can have the best work day that you can possibly have. You're going to look amazing, I know you are. Thank you, thank you. We are heading down. First, I do need to kill this thing though. Okay. We are heading down. Why is the hype train still going? Thank you for the subscription. Thank you. Thank you, cara mia. Oh, cara mia. Mi corazón. There we go. Okay. Und now down we go. That is death. That is water. Well, we are trying. And now I can go back to normal, thank God. Alright. Oh, what are the chances we go through iron on the way down? What good luck we have today. My chat, we're gonna keep going. Gonna eat this little guy. Nom nom nom. What if I keep going until the wood pickaxe breaks? What do you think? Good idea? Best idea? I like the little. You just think any sound I make is satisfying. I'm gonna go hum bup 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 bup. Woof woof. Wow, Carmia likes it when I cry, apparently. I can do odd noises. Hello, Dino Puppy Dot. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh no. Well, get a different one for now, and you can remove the trap after work. Lost all ambition, worldly acclaim. I just wanna be the one you love, and with your admission that you feel the same, I'm the one you're dreaming of, believe me. I'm sure it'll look fantastic, Soul. Something so satisfying about saying soul. I don't like the space. I'm trying a different one. This is going to be a very American answer, Anya. The first thing I'd do if I had unlimited money is go get a bunch of health tests done, have my teeth made even prettier than they currently are, buy a full fridge of healthy food, healthcare. I want prettier teeth. I think I'd like to get them whitened a shade or two. And have my health checked. Yeah, I'm jealous of a lot of y'all's healthcare. Oh, while we still have sticks, I need to do this. Let's be smart about this. Let's not waste anything. Not a single thing is going to be wasted this time. I mean, that is my main goal. Streaming right now, for me, pays for streaming, which has been nice. Thank you, Anya. I appreciate it. So, from like any of the services that I need and dealing with the occasional editor, as well as, hiring some people. So I'm breaking pretty even with streaming. But if we were to get to the point where it's like a second paycheck, I'll use it to supplement my health insurance. and then eventually supplement everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It does, it does. No, we don't need to get political with it. Hi, Casey. How you doing, sweetie? Chat, I can't figure out what this does. Oh. I figured it out. And to make it a fire. Ask him to get some bitches. Bonnie just blew me up again, chat. Crazy. And you know I really appreciate it. I'm proud of you. Good on you for doing your homework. I'm gonna drink a little water. 1 second, chat. If you have not drank water yet, please do so. Cheers. Oh, I didn't realize how thirsty I was. Coffee does not count. I do suggest you have a little coffee. It's good in the morning. Helps your brain kick into overdrive. But don't make it your only thing. Drink some water. Coffee does hydrate a bit, but not enough. Oh. And you can always just do what I do. Put everything to a credit card and then pay it off later. Bad Carmia. Drink your water. Chat. Hydrate. Hi, Pomo. Welcome back. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Matcha latte. Oh, sounds lovely. Good. Glad the clicker's working. I should have gotten one a long time ago. You're welcome. The clicker. My evil machinations. Not 20,000, they meant 2,000. They had an extra. Give me your sword. He gave me a sword. He gave me an enchanted sword. smelly. Vanya, when you ask them to take a bath, I'm immune. I'm kidding, I love you, Vanya. Vanya is not immune to baths. I meant you're stinky. Hey, that spawner. I don't know how to make a thing to kill Spideys, but we're gonna try to figure it out. I got a music disc chat. We're gonna be pumping tunes. Thank you for the bits. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. And we got melon seeds. Oh my god, chat, this run is goated. That felt so cringy to say. Why did I say that? I apologize. Okay, don't call me a nerd. You know, just don't call it a comeback, because I've been here for years. Artificial amateurs on it all amazing. Analytically, I astound, animate things, broken barriers. Pounded by the bomb being, buildings are broken, basically I'm bombarding. Casually, catastrophes, casualties, canceling, cats got their canopies collapsing. Detonated damaging, daily do and don't, demonstrations done on the down low. Eaten other editors was eaten every energetic, epileptic episode, elevated etiquette. Furious, fat, fabulous, fantastics, feedings of funk-filled, feeding the fanatics. Great God, good globe, good God, glorious, getting loudly in his name with the glorious at high, historical. Hey, Holocaust, him, Holage, homeboy, imitators, idolize, I intimidate. In an instance, I rise in an irate state. Juiced on my jams like Jerry curls, chalking twins, it's just me. It is Carmia. Surprised you noticed. Just Lee's just me writing my journals. Anyways. It's called alphabetic acrobatics. It is a good way to practice voices and to keep the tongue nice and limber. He's casting voodoo on us, oh no. Voodoo, you voodoo bitch. I got a zombie army and you can't harm me. Welcome back, Soul, sweetie. I got a zombie. Oh, hey, look, it's Diamond. I mean, chat, it is canonic. It's canon that I'm a munch. We've been through this. I got a zombie army and you can't harm me. Who do you voodoo bitch? What cage? What cage? Oh. I'm sure, Carmia. What cage are you talking about? Oh, the monster spawner. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll walk you through this one. So, these spawn little monsters. And as long as there's a light source, they won't spawn. But if you take the light source off, they'll start spawning again. And so you can make a monster mill. I just need to make a spot where all the water comes down, pushes them into a hole that I can kill them in. Monsters only spawn in darkness or a light level at a certain level. That's why I put up torches everywhere I go, because it makes them stop spawning. Which is honestly such a genius mechanic. It's so simple. but very creative. Spider crider doesn't work with water? Oh, that's right. Well, yeah. I do, I have 2 ear piercings. Right now I have the smallest ones that I have, but I'm planning on getting more. Hey, I'm trying to be more wholesome. What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm doing evil. Evil gang, evil gang, evil gang, evil gang. You can be lewd and wholesome at the same time. You can be lewd and wholesome at the same time. Come on, give me a little credit. I'm multitasking. I'm very kind. But yes, my stream is always 18 plus. Adorably lewd. Fair enough. Because Vanya hates me. Vanya hates me. Exactly. Thank you for the follow. Goldilocks. Your name's fun. I didn't mean to make Lux angry. You can't blame me for that. I thought we were having a little bitch circle. And Lux got so upset. It's not my fault. Gold. There's nothing here. Nothing worth my while. What angle? Where do I go? To get a random direction, let's go. What song do you stuck in your head? Na 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 na. I always go north, you're right. You're right, I should go west. Let me just God me help. How do I do I go? Wait. Okay. West. 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 More west. A little bit more west. More west. I got this. Down? Okay. I'm going south as fast as I can, Chad. Not down? Oh, we hit bedrock. Oh, that's why we're doing bad. We're too low. Hey, look, a saddle. And a bucket. I don't need this. Thank you. Don't need that. What can I get rid of? I guess I don't need this. Morning, Mitchie. How you doing? All right. Eat them. I'm doing okay. Still in a bit of a fog, but you know, we're doing all right. Nom 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 nom. 1, 2. I need water though. Hamster. 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 Up we go. Oh. Hey, look, a hole. Honey Bunch, you're supposed to be getting ready for work. What are you doing? You said you were going to get all dolled up. What happened? Come on. Get going. Get it done. Consume. Devoured. Get eaten, nerd. Crazy. I look lapis. I love lapis. Give me that glorious EXP. Cobble. There it is. Boo. Boo this nerd. Ooh, that was almost bad, chat. I just realized I had lost something. Glad we actually have the crafting table now. Let's make sure I keep that with me. Who's dogging? Come on. Sorry, chat. Give me attention. I haven't had enough attention. Thank you. There we go. That's how we do it. It's okay. No attention for me. I'm so happy the dog clicker's working as well as I thought it would. That's fine. If I get smothered in gravel, I get smothered in gravel. And like, what am I gonna do then? Just not be smothered in gravel? Sometimes you just get smothered in gravel, okay? Alright, chat. Sit. Bark. No. Proud of you. Good little bump. You got me, Fox noises. Oh, adorable. Absolutely adorable. What does the fox say? Apparently it screamed like a human. Sorry, there was a fly. I don't even know where that thing came from. Yeah, sure woke me up. Good morning, Yuki. How you doing? Morning, Firehawk. It's been a little bit. How you doing? Oh, what a good little foxy. Anya, you are such a good little foxy. You can always ask me if you're a good fox. And I can tell you if you're a good fox. Why are you gonna kill me? Ja, natürlich. Warum willst du das machen? Thank you, Anya. Prepping to move? Oh, how's that going? Ja, Michi mit diese dumme Wörter. Hast du mich? Wirklich? Warum kommst du immer zurück? Mit peachy. I know, I'm just bullying you, Minchie. You're fine. You just triggered the young. That's both good and sad. I know that as though. God, it was depressing moving out of my last place and realizing how little things I actually had. You know? Lieutenant Commander Shepard. Hello. Yeah. At least the bread and butter's good there. You do anything enough, you remember it. Hey, look, diamond. My day's going well. That is why I don't have any pets. Oh, I feel you. You take it nice and easy, okay? Let's see if diamond now. If I can find water, we'd be doing a lot better. I want a little bit of light. I'm happy it's Friday too. Oh, lovelies, don't forget about media share night. I'm just stretching. I could do a lot worse. Trust me. But I won't. Because I'm a good boy. It's Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Oh, I just ripped some, yes. Fuck yes. Fuck yes. Shit, 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 shit. Into the water. Oh, because I needed to make sure that Vonnie was awake. Oh, adorable. Make that brain glitch. I just ripped a shirt. What's wrong with me ripping a shirt? That ain't freaky. That's just a shirt. It's fabric. We live here. No brain glitch, Brad. Make the brain stop. You don't need the brain. Come on, what's the point of having a brain? Why do you want to think? No thoughts. Empty head. Don't you know that an empty brain is a pretty brain? Smooth. No wrinkles. No valleys or bumps. No ridges or lumps. Smooth. No, these are like junk t-shirts. Should I go get a new one? I have one I can rip, Chad. 1 second. Huh? What? I've been meaning to rip this one, though. Please? Can I please rip this one? Please. It's already kind of messed up. I need to get rid of it anyways. Thank you, Aura. All right. It's interesting how different materials make different pitches of noises, isn't it? Well, I'm wearing it like a jacket now because the front's ripped down, but the back is still there. But like the thickness is not that much different, but it's a lot higher pitch than the thinner shirts. This one's a lot thicker. Why? It's warm in here. I mean, if you want to pay for it. Kidding, kidding, kidding. I'm behaving myself. Oh no, I was cold this morning, but my computer heats up this room so fast that I'm actually a little sweaty right now. I probably am salty all the time. Oh. Yeah, I'm pretty salty. Oh, no, I take off one shirt, I put on a new shirt, and I rip open that shirt. And I sit here with the shirt ripped down the center, like a jacket. I might keep this one like a jacket, though. It's kind of fun. It's very comfy. Thank you for the biddies. I really appreciate it. Oh, why you call me stinky? Oh, I remember what I'm doing now, chat. Do you know what I'm doing, chat? Do you want to know? Do you know what we're doing, sweeties, lovelies, cuties? We are gonna build another stupid freaking box. Where did my box go? Where'd my crafting table go? Why do I keep losing my crafting table? Which one of you keeps taking my crafting table? Every single time. Okay, well, what I wanted to do, but we'll waste the materials on it. Oh well. Body is always out of control, it's true facts. Used it to play 3-card Monte. Don't lose it on 3-card Monte. Homie. How could you? Devour. Consume. Eat. 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 How tasty it is. I like the intro to Tokyo Ghoul. It's very nice. That wasn't me, though. What? What about the turtles? What did I do with turtles, chat? I'm excited for Media Night. By the way, if you haven't submitted for Media Share, let me know. I also will hopefully get a proper thing for that. How tasty it is. I don't know what you did, but okay. I'm sure you're fine. Why are you awake? God's punishment against the sinful is insomnia. I don't know. I thought it was funny though. Yeah, it makes sense. Oh, well. That's annoying. I said God's punishment against the sinful is insomnia. See, somebody knows I'm right. Am I wrong? Am I wrong, little demon? Oh, you can mine obsidian exclusively with a diamond pickaxe. You learn something new every day. That's why diamond is so nice. Diamond is used in so much good stuff. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. Oh. Huh. Diamonds are diamonds are Gene's best friend. It's true facts. Chad, if you ever want to make it to my heart really quickly, I will take diamonds. Thank you. the way my heart's a sandwich. That's also true. There are quite a few ways to my heart. As well as just genuine compliments. That's what you'd think, but my ribs are immortal. Not invincible, immortal. Trees. Trees. Chat, we have trees. Chat, we have trees. Chat, we have trees. Chat, we have trees. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never melted once. Because we are in a certain kind of fit of the nether. The nether has all different worlds. This world's name is Penis. And seen more hellish, that's true. But I like this vibrant landscape of a place. Why can't I build there? But I can build there just fine. Okay. We ain't gonna question it. It was not blue as far as I remember. I'll survive that. Boop. And the award for least efficient builder goes to Gene. Woot. Nobody build as inefficiently as me. Chimin nuggets. This will be useful. Have a nap and then have some sushi. Oh no, I did not realize you attack. I have learned something today. In my folly and my error, I perhaps prescribed myself death. Oh no, death is upon me in many places. I have learned. The warthogs. The warthogs are angry. How many necklaces you wear? Today or in general? I have 3 primarily. Oh, she look amazing. They just jealous. Hello, theme. It does sometimes. I have a thin one that I wear. Wow, now that I think about it, I think all of the chains and necklaces I have, exes bought me. Because they're always like, you need to accessorize more. Here, wear this accessory. I have a pearl and chain necklace. Then I have a thin chain one with bat wings. And then I have a thick chain that I also wear. Depends on the day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't like ring necklace. Feels like something on my neck. Oh, it sounds like you have a very rough family. I do hope you're able to get distance from them eventually, so you can feel more natural and comfortable in your own skin and not worry about their judgments all the time. You deserve to live free. Well, hello there. How you doing, beautiful? Oh, it's okay. Take a little break. Good night. I might sweet talk too many things, Jet. My lovely, lovely darlings. Anytime anything goes wrong, I start flirting with it. Especially like electronics and computers. Hmm. No. That's why you should take your distance. I think it's important to get away from family for a while. Everyone needs to have room to grow, to be the person they want to be. Percussive. Carmia, don't throw your computer out the window. Don't throw your computer out the window. Percussive maintenance through defenestration. That is good. I like that. Also known as banging it up by tossing it out a window. Actually, I go, oh, baby boy, come on. Come on, you can do it. Work for me. Oh, why aren't you working? You know you want to work for me. There you go. Good boy. That's how I talk to my computer. Mm. Oh, I would love some mochi. Slightly. Only slightly. I hope so as well, Silas. I hope you get the space that you need. Mm. Mm. No. Okay. There it is. That's what I need. Pop, pop, pop. Takes that. We'll do a little bit of this. Thank you. Chop it up, diddling up in a karate. I'm doing 90 and it's in a bag, riding shoddy. Such a good boy when I was 18. I smoked alcohol and drank weed. Now my brain turns into baked beans. Don't be like me, kids, I'm fried. No, I feel you. Got a new plug, my other guy sucks. Barely got a buzz off $25. Got too high. Dropped 200, I got too much, and I got too high. I'm sunny side up. Don't tell me money don't buy happiness when it so happens that money buys drugs. And therefore, by the transitive property, when I'm fucked up, don't talk to me. I feel like there's a bunch of little bugs on top of me. Help me, I can't get them off of me. Sorry, I got the song stuck in my head. Brain. What? Oh, of course it is. I'm such a good doggy. I'm stuck in a couch that's stuck in a room where the walls get closer. Next time you try fucking me over, I'll put you in a bath with a plugged-in toaster. Keep. Oh. Sometimes I'm dumb, and other times I'm still dumb. That's okay. Thank you for the like. What's it time for? I don't have enough, wood to make a chest. I've thought about it. I'll be back here already. Why do I wonder how much you actually have in points now, Vanyas? I have a feeling that you run out quite frequently ever since this voice has come up. But then again, you probably also have a lot of points and you just wait until the timer's up, isn't that right? Lovely little raccoon. Bathtub toast sounds fun. It is not fun. You should not do that. Bed. Your bed. Okay, well, how much food do I have? Not enough. You're still rich. You that rich bitch. It's funny because it rhymes. Remember, you cannot make a boat out of the crimson blanks. Why do you even exist then? What is your point in existence if I cannot make a boat out of you? You disappoint me one too many times. One too many times. So at least we'll make one of these and we'll toss that. We throw this there, we got that. Perfect. Okay, now what do I need? What do you mean, how would it know how to float? Boats just float, silly. They don't need to know anything. In fact, if your boat is knowing things, that would be a problem, wouldn't it? Good morning, Siren. Okay, you know what? That is actually a very good point, though. Because the boat is made of fireproof wood, and so it naturally probably is not very good at... It's very dense. And so it wouldn't function. Siren, I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing? How is you? Is you doing good? You know what I should do, chat, instead of choices? I should just get a lot of Nezarek. You're only okay. Well, that's not the best, but at least it is something. Yes, everybody eat some foods. if you've not eaten any foods. Oh, eat food. I have no food to eat. I have 2 berries, and the berries must be saved. Just in case. In case I need some. Just kidding. I eat. Okay. What am I doing? Ah, yes, an observer. That is what I wanted. To observe. Why is it not telling me how to observe? We'll make a little redstone once now we have this, okay? Observe. That is okay. That is not difficult to make. I could make one now, actually. And then I could make it with. Can I burn sugar cane? No, but I can burn kelp. I imagine that it is like stone, you know? It is not like. Oh, that hurts. I almost died there. That would have been very, very bad. Okay, down we go into the deeps. And we're going to plant some kelp. Boop. We cannot plant the kelp on that. 1 second. Okay, we grab the dirt. We throw this here. You ready, chat? 1, 2, 3. That is a zombie. We will not risk that right now because I do not have a lot of health. Nobody has told me to stretch in quite a while, so my back was getting a little sore. How dare you? Why do I have a notification on X? Oh! Chat, by the way, there might be a script being done very soon. You'll have some new cute and cuddly ASMRs that will be coming for you. Damn. I cannot go down there. There are zombies. It's okay. I need to figure out what to do. I'm kind of at a stalemate. Maybe we make a little bridge to get over to where I put the watermelon. Okay. There we go. That is better. Please let there be no skeleton. Okay, no skeleton. Michi and Silas, don't forget we have a Discord for a reason. It's not a misbehaving thing, but as the topic says, please keep things related to stream. Once that is most definitely not related to stream. You all can talk about art in another space. A personal space. Exactly. There's a whole screen of you two chatting. I'm playing games right now, I cannot. But perhaps after. There we go. But how is everyone doing this morning? You do hate the age if I bought quite a lot, so I know that. But it's not going anywhere. Then there are still miners trying to get into the server. And it makes me uncomfortable if I have to deal with that. So, the option is... Wait, if I cut it, there we go. Give me watermelon now. You'll be good, son. Bye, Michi. Be good. Okay. Grow, watermelon, grow. Give me watermelon. Oh, good, I can finally drop this. It's not scolding. It becomes an issue as you are having a personal conversation, and it does dissuade others from speaking. It's never anything personal. Mm-hmm. 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 I wish I could make it down there. Maybe. Alright, I think I'm just gonna end stream, y'all. I think I'm just gonna end stream. It's a bit too much for me to deal with right now. Y'all have a good one. I will